Hey, welcome to the Streamlined CEO podcast. I am your host, Karalee, an operations specialist, and this is a podcast for solopreneurs and CEOs with a team to understand how to streamline operations, be more efficient, and create more capacity. You know you want to do things differently in order to scale and reach your next milestone or goal. If you feel stuck on what your next move is to make things more streamlined, I assure you, you're not alone. This podcast is for you if you desire at least one of these things: streamlined operations, to be more efficient with your time, to add on a team member, to be able to trust your team members, and you desired bite-sized operational action steps, and you desire a more organized, efficient, and simple way to do business. Okay, so are you in the right place? Let's dive in. All right, hello, welcome back to the series, How to Bring on a Virtual Assistant Effectively. Today, I actually have one of my own team members with me today. Her name is Chay, and she's going to be sharing a little bit about how working for me and the team as a virtual assistant, how that impacts her. But before we jump into that and she introduces herself, I want to share with you how Chay and I even got connected. We actually got connected in a mastermind that we both had joined. Not surprisingly, but like it was, I don't know the word here, but the mentor here, the coach of that group was like, hey, you two should connect. At that point, we were like, we're completely different people. This sounds really weird. But you know what? We're like best friends now. And so we're going to share some stories about our personal and business relationships throughout the last 2 years. I'm super excited about it. But before we do any more of that, Chay, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karalee. And turns out we're not actually that different of people, too. Yes, so that's fun.
That's what we found out. Yep.
We have a lot in common, even if I'm just really sparkly. I'm Chay Hardy. I'm the owner of Chay Creates LLC. I am a photographer, content creator, and a media and marketing virtual assistant. And I work with entrepreneurs, entertainers, and artists to expand their creative capacity. So really colorful, sparkly life I live over here. I also work to create a trauma-sensitive space for photography and videography where clients can capture images and videos of themselves and just like really be themselves, not like put on a mask for people. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, I love that. Yes, Chay has actually done brand photos for me. It's pretty much all the ones you see around here. Chay is the mastermind behind that. And so I get to work with her with all of her strengths at some point in time. Like, she has been a gold mine to find. And I feel like this is a great segue to say that when we first started working together a year ago, it did not quite go as we had intended. And we actually learned a lot about ourselves, me as a CEO, Chay as the virtual assistant. Like, what did we both need to put in place to fill those gaps? Because what happened is I would give Chay some stuff to work on, and then suddenly the deadlines would pass, or there weren't deadlines, right? And then we were like, oh, well, now I need it like immediately, and now I don't have time. So we ended up working through our differences. Obviously, she's a virtual assistant for me right now. But Chay, what was some of the things that you'd like to share around that story?
Yeah, so turns out when you live a lot of your life very deadline focused and you tend to be a master procrastinator, at some point in time you forget how to start things if there isn't an end date. So that was something I really learned about myself last year in general, and I just I took a step back and I was like, okay, like, do I need a deadline? Can I follow my own deadlines? No, we just want deadlines from the client, and then I set things. Because, like, if you tell me the thing's due on May 10th, and I know that there's going to be like 6 rounds of edits in it, I don't need to send it to you on May 10th. My deadline should probably be like the 5th. So really getting that in place and recognizing the need for a task management system, because I might act like I'm Superwoman sometimes, but my brain can only hold on to so much, and for some reason it really loves those song lyrics. So having a task management system just like really helps free up the space in my brain so that I can think and also recognizing I was in burnout. So it's possible to work through burnout. It's really difficult to work through burnout, and motivation can be really low through burnout. So as I've worked on working through some of that, working through some chronic pain issues I have and things like that, and healing some of that burnout, it's a little easier to get started on things. And then I was like, you know what? We're gonna go all in on this virtual assistant thing in 2024, and here we are.
Yeah, Shay actually shared with me, we were just having a casual conversation, friend to friend, and she's like, yeah, I'm really wanting to work more with like podcasts and this and that. And like, she's like, I love writing the captions for the posts and reels and things. And I suddenly went, uh, wait, what? Like, you literally just said everything that I need support with right now, because I don't like to do those things. I'm down with recording the podcast and I'm down with all this other stuff. And I'm like, I want support on some of these other things. So I was like, you're gonna like come save me, save one of my clients. You're gonna write these captions, create these posts. Like, you got this design eye, all these things. I was like, I need you. Can you start tomorrow?
And I did,
And
and it was great. And this kind of out of my comfort zone, because I love being behind the scenes, behind the camera, behind the computer, and doing all of that. And so it just kind of like synergetically worked out really well.
yes, and she has been doing amazing. The last, well, as we're recording this, like 2 months, but it feels like it's been far longer. Like, it's been great to work together. Um, so we're doing great at this segues things, like, like, because we're being real here on this podcast. What has been your experience working with me, and then also the team, because we have another virtual assistant on the team, and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be real, like the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. Like, what are your experiences? I am intrigued to hear.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we'll start with the good. Like, you still showed me places where I could improve in my systems as a virtual assistant, but not just like in the sense of, oh, you didn't do this thing. You were just like, hey, look, I have this social media approval board, and all you have to do is this, and here's like all of the exact steps. And I was like, nobody's ever done that for me. What? So having that really clear direction has been super helpful, and I really was like, I don't think it was the next day, but it was like that week I was whipping out posts and things like that and getting that moving, because it was really easy to follow the directions, and we had already created a safe space and work through differences, so it was really easy for me to come to you and be like, hey, I don't understand this thing. We had a couple of places where it was like, oh, you need an SOP here. Like the first time I tried to schedule your stuff, and you were like, I don't understand why all of this is wrong. And I was like, I didn't know all of those settings existed. And you're like, oh. So it's been a really good learning experience on both sides, because sometimes we get into our zone of genius and we're just knocking out steps in a process automatically, and then we go to delegate it and we're like, oh, there's a whole subsection of things that I do for this that they're not a mind reader. They don't know that. And then learning about the right amount of touch points. So sometimes people think, like, if I have a team of so many people, we want to make sure everybody's touching that. And that's great, especially when integrating. It's great when everyone has zone of geniuses. And sometimes that it's just not necessary, because the team works really well together and everybody kind of knows what they're doing, and so added touch points can cause stalls in the process for everybody. So we had a little bit of figuring out to do on like strengths and zones of genius there, but I think it's gone really well.
Yes, I would totally agree. I've learned so much while bringing on you and the other virtual assistant, because I had the systems in place already for myself. But when you add extra people to the team, like you said, additional touch points, but also like, just does the system work when there's more than one person using it, right? And so it's been really good to see how how I've had to actually modify my operations in general to be able to accommodate that. So bringing on virtual assistants has their own drawbacks as well, because now it takes more time, but it also allows you to slow down, which I think is a luxury that we don't actually think we deserve. That we have to keep going. And honestly, personally, what I've realized, especially after bringing on a team, is that I was working way too hard. When I started delegating to a team, I was like, oh, they literally, you guys were like, why are you doing X, Y, Z? You don't have to do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just saved an hour a week by you guys just pointing it out. So it's really good to have other people looking at your content, looking at your operations, looking at anything in your business, because sometimes we're too close to the thing to see it for what it really is. And so that's been something I've seen from you and or basically from the team in general, like just how can I improve things? Like I'm open to feedback, which is a huge thing also that I think that you also love is like I'm open for feedback, but then I'm also like, how can we make this better? How can we work together more efficiently? Does this work for you? Or do we need to change things? So
absolutely. And you're also like, you're not stingy with your knowledge. So when I was like, hey, I have another client that I'm doing social media for, and I've been struggling to figure out a good approval system, like, can I take this and implement this, obviously without using your client's name or anything, but take this and implement this into my own business? And you're like, absolutely, please do. Like, that's a testament to me. And so like, we just really having that kind of support each other. We all also have our own businesses, and so it's not just like, the boss Karalee and then team productivity impact. It's like, okay, how do we all come together and collaborate and get the job done the most efficiently in a way that makes our clients want more?
Absolutely, because if you're more organized with the other clients, that means you're more organized with me too, right? Which means you're more productive, you're less stressed, we work together better. So if I can help you in any way, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And it's not like I had to create the template or the system. You just had to take what you already saw and then implement it and critique it for your own client. So yeah, I'm down with sharing all the resources, man.
Which is great, because you don't always have that in like an employer and contractor situation. So I think that's one thing that sets you apart from some other people who might hire. And something that I would think that people hiring VAs should keep in mind is, if you make me better and you make me more efficient, that just means I get everyone's work done faster. And I have more creative energy to give, and I have like better time management. And so it makes sense that we would support each other.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Is there anything else in your brain that you're like dying to share right now?
Well, I mean, can I share something a little bit more in my niche on marketing? Because I think marketing has come up more and more in hot topics lately around being real and what that looks like, and like the reality of, even me being here on this podcast in video. That's not normal for me, but it's, how easy those things can be, especially if you have the right support.
Yes, absolutely. Share away.
So one of my favorite things that I do with clients is I kind of dig deep into their business. I am, those people who you're like, you're secretly a member of the FBI. I'm not, but you would think I was, with how far back I go in your content to develop your voice and then kind of step into your shoes. But the other thing that I see when I do that is that a lot of people, like, I can dive deep into your content, and at one point in time you were showing up and you were sharing all of these things like about you and who you are, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to hire all of my clients. But then we stop and we get scared and we're like, ooh, no, I'm not perfect. I mean, I've moved how many different lights just in the 15 minutes before we started doing this. And I think it's important sometimes to just consider bringing a second set of eyes in, even if it's not permanently as a VA, even if you're like, can I just hire you for 5 hours? to go through all of my content, to figure out my voice, to tell me how to show up as me a little bit more. Or another client, like literally just I go to her house and we film reels, and I film her like interacting with her husband and all of those things, and all of that can be split into content without extra work from her. But she couldn't necessarily see that, and it's really difficult to follow yourself around with a camera. I know there's another content creator that is a mentor of mine, and she literally has a second phone on a tripod with one of those like eye movement detector things, so she can follow herself around with a camera, but not everybody is like that. So sometimes bringing, like, if you are really, really struggling with your content and you're like, I have all of this content, I know, and none of it feels important enough, sometimes bringing a second set of eyes in can help that a lot, even if they're not a permanent team member. So that would just be over the past like year and a half. That's one of the things that I've really noticed, is just how much people's horizons seem to expand when it comes to their marketing, messaging, and content creation, just from me going, did you know that's content? Because sometimes you're too close to it, you don't even see.
Yeah, I've definitely found value in like B-roll and following, I don't follow myself around. I know who you're talking about, but we've got some killer social media, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But like figuring, like even brand photos, because you're also my brand photographer, right? Like brand photos, as I said in the beginning, like I was like, I use her photos all the time because it's simple, they're amazing, and I don't have to always have like a selfie, like those don't look as good. And then of course B-roll, which is, easily make into reels and all that, right? So having all that content, Chay literally will do this for you, and compile it and create like all these things, which she's totally going to be doing that in the near future. She just doesn't know it yet. So here's your little thing.
That's exciting. I love that. Yeah, because I mean, it can be as simple as I had my partner just like film me walking through the forest the one day, because I was walking and I was already there. Why would I make a second trip to do a content thing if I'm already there and I know at some point in time I might be able to use this video of me walking away? But
we need to have like a whole other podcast too on like how you can actually like
I
dive
would love
into
that.
how you could use that piece of content for like 5 different things and different launches, yeah. We're going to have you back. That's what's going to have to happen.
I would love that, because I think we were conditioned for many, many years into perfection and highlight reels. And as that's coming down, we're learning it can be traumatic to unmask. And so sometimes you just you need a little bit of help and encouragement, being like, this is okay. I love this content idea. I want to hire you while watching this. Sometimes we just need a second person to be like, you're doing good. You're doing good, because being real online can be hard, and it's not normal for everybody. It's not second nature.
I don't think it's second nature for 90% of people. I mean, you have to really get into that confidence and break down those barriers essentially and unmask and things. But of course, that's also another podcast for another time. We're uncovering all sorts of things. But if you guys want to hear any of these, totally let me know. But here is my last little thing I want to ask you. If you could give one piece of advice, which I know you've already given quite a few, but the very biggest one, that you'd give someone that's looking to hire a media or marketing virtual assistant, what would be that one piece of advice?
My biggest piece of advice is you don't have to have a super detailed post by post plan, but you should definitely have a marketing plan of some sort. Otherwise, I take a lot of content if I'm given no boundaries. There's a venue that I work for that I, no lie, since they opened in 2020, have delivered at least 10,000 edited photos. Because we just need social proof, but not everybody needs that. And so when you hire a VA and you're just like, here's my social media, have fun, we don't know what to do with that. Even if I'm a social media manager, which I do have a background in that as well, but even if I'm a social media manager, unless I know what your focus is, unless I know this is, here's a list of freebie resources, or I want a CTA every so often, or like, here's topics that you can cover. Unless I know those things, it can cause decision paralysis. And when I first started trying to be a VA in, I think it was 2021, I was running into that a lot, where people would be like, I just want you to manage my social media. And I didn't know any better. I was a newbie VA. So I was like, okay, why am I struggling? Well, because you don't have to have your plan. You can even brainstorm it with your VA sometimes. Like, be like, can we just have a marketing meeting? I'll pay you for it. You can log an hour for this. Can we have a marketing meeting and just say like, okay, I have this book launch, or I have this program, or I have this event coming up, and that's all I know. And then we can go from there. But simply throwing your marketing or throwing your social media or throwing piles of content at a VA and telling them have fun is not necessarily going to get you the results that you want. You want to have some sort of a direction plan or something of that nature.
Awesome. I love that. Is a great piece of advice. And I actually literally brought Chay into kind of in this little situation where I was like, this is kind of some direction. Like, I don't know, this client has changed their mind a few times. This is a direction we're going in. Let me know if you have any questions. And, so I gave her what I had, but it did come down to that client in the end did not give me enough information. So we had to work through that. But as far as Chay working for me specifically, she actually runs this podcast behind the scenes. And so she gets to actually edit her own and guest interview. And I don't know how she feels about it, but she's going to do it anyway. But this is a great way to be able to give your media virtual assistant, or whoever, a virtual assistant in general, your social plan, right? Your marketing plan can come straight from a podcast. If you look at my social media, 95% of it comes from this podcast. It's reels, it's graphics, it's carousels, it's all the things. It's repurposed in many places. So that is one service that we actually provide that Chay would love to add you on to be able to make your podcast and all the content and things like that. Like, look at her. She looks so giddy right now, her and her cat ears. And so if that's something that you're interested in, we would love to have you be a client and come on to the team. And obviously, if you have any other questions, we are open books, and we would love to share those things with you. And but of course, we also have to say, if you're interested in brand photography or B-roll or marketing, all those things that Chay is amazing at. She doesn't only work for my agency, she also is an independent contractor. So like you can go and be like, I just want to hire her. And that's totally cool because it's collaboration over competition around here. So how can they actually, if they're interested in learning more from you, how can they connect with you?
Well, before that, I did, because I'm terrible about talking about myself, as you know, sometimes. I did forget to mention why they would want to hire me to help manage their podcast, which is that I also come from a background of 13 years of live event tech and audio and lighting experience. So, bringing that level to the podcast, like Karalee's like, there's this really complicated video editing thing that I don't know how to do. And I'm like, give me 5 minutes. Sorry, we've got the cat making an appearance. He opened the door.
Oh, good job. Good job, Cole. Anyway, so.
But yes, people can find me. I hang out most right now on Facebook or Instagram. We've got a cat tail coming in there.
What's a podcast interview without a cat? It's
right.
all good.
Right. It's great.
We're all real around here.
We are. So I hang out most on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/Chay Creates, all one word, starting with a CH, CHAY, not SHEA, not Char. There's been a whole laundry list, but CHAY Creates, or Instagram at Chay_Creates. And I hang out there. I will be hanging out more, I promise.
Yay! And you can find her links in the show notes too. Make it easy, click on them. But awesome. We're definitely going to have you back again because we uncovered a few other things that I would love to dive deep into, but we like to keep these podcast episodes under 30 minutes and we could talk for hours. So, all right, everyone, if you have any questions, head to the show notes, grab all the fun things, And if you have any podcast requests as well, we would love to be able to expand on those things as well. So, all right, bye for now. If you've made it this far, you're clearly invested in streamlining your operations and maximizing efficiency in your business. Remember, growth and progress often start with a desire for change, and you're already on the right track by seeking out resources like this podcast. I always like to hear from my listeners so I can support you, but also so I can continue to bring you binge-worthy episodes. You can always put in a topic request or reach out to me in the DMs. Remember, the journey to streamline success isn't always easy, but it's definitely worth it. So keep tuning in, stay engaged, and most importantly, take those actionable steps towards your goals.